Welcome, everybody, to the Lower Decks episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast, live from each of our own personal studios, coming to you, talking about this terrible, terrible Star Trek show. Thank you for joining us. As always, I have my co-host here, author extraordinaire, producer of the show, Matthew Kadish. What's up, man?
How's it going?
It's going. And the barbarian himself, Matt Vader, 74. What's up, dude? Good morning.
Is it morning still?
No, it's actually
It's
noon,
12:39. It's time to wake up.
Morning somewhere.
Good afternoon. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Right on, Red 5 Network.
Yeah, there we go. Little plug. Okay.
Nice. Shout out to Ro and the Red 5 Network. So today, because we missed last week because Vader wasn't with us, and it didn't feel right doing this show without him. So we're going to be doing two episodes this week. We're going to be doing episodes 5 and 6, and Kadish is going to take it away with the plot details, and then we'll discuss each episode as we go. It's going to be pretty light. We this is kind of a spur of the moment thing, so I'm not looking for like some uber structure, but we do want to talk about the show and have some fun with it. So join us in the chat. Let us know what you guys think of the show, and tell us when you think we're being shills for CBS.
Looks like Hulk is here already, so I'm sure it'll be.
I think just talking about this show makes us shills, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, technically.
And especially if we don't have anything bad to say about it, we're super shills.
I guess we're already getting shit in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hulk's in there. What? No Tom again? Who's going to tell you you're all wrong?
That's what chat's for.
Yep,
Right.
That's what you're here for, man. All right, take it away. So episode 5 is called Cupid's Errant Arrow.
Errant arrow.
Errant. Sorry.
Not errand.
Sorry.
So episode 5 of season 1, Star Trek Lower Decks, is entitled Cupid's Errant Arrow. And it's basically like what happens if Cupid misses, his shot. The plot is that Mariner is suspicious of Boimler's new girlfriend. Tindy and Rutherford grow jealous of a bigger starship's gear. And Captain Freeman and Jack Ransom have to negotiate diplomatically with various warring populations. So basically, there are 3 different storylines going on in this episode. And let's talk about the first one, which is, of course, Captain Freeman dealing with the people of Mixtus 2 and Mixtus 3. So basically, the overarching scenario in this episode is that you have the planet of Mixtus 3 that has like a bunch of different moons kind of orbiting around it. And one of the moons is unstable, and it's about to break apart and cause all types of calamity on the planet that it's orbiting. But what should be like a simple rescue operation where Starfleet comes and basically controls the demolition of this moon and makes it safe for everybody. Various different populations of the planets and the surrounding moons are having disagreements about certain things because there are like religious implications to the moon, and there's, not economic, but ecological implications, and all this different stuff that people are arguing over. And so even though it means that, their planet's basically doomed, none of these groups can actually agree on anything. And so the captain has to come in and diffuse the situation, figure out a solution to these problems in Starfleet flat fashion, and basically try to get it to the point where they can actually save these people.
Yeah.
And this is just a small part of the episode, but it's kind of like the backdrop upon which the other 2 storylines play out. And this is where we get to see the upper deck crew doing their thing. So what did you guys think of this one?
I thought they needed Q to come in and snap his fingers and put the moon back where it belongs, like in the Next Generation episode with the exact same plot that they took this from.
Yeah, they didn't have Captain Picard's best friend to come and save the day.
Which Next Gen episode was this based on?
I forget the name of it. Somebody in chat probably knows it. I mean, I used to know the name of all the episodes, but it's been 30 years, right? So yeah, there was a Q episode. There was a moon degrading into orbit. I think Geordi came up with some plan where they were going to use a deflector shield or some shit to pull the moon back into orbit with its tractor beams and stuff, and it didn't work, and the moon started breaking up, and Q was trying to prove a point as Q does, and in the end he saved the day. Right? Am I right, chat? Is that correct? But I think I'm right. So yeah. But
well, they're running out of ideas for stories, I guess. They have to recycle some of these older ones.
Or we just see a different kind of perspective on the same kind of thing. It's fine. I liked how they kind of I do kind of like how they made the population of the planet to where nobody could get along or decide what they wanted to do with each other. That's pretty kind of relevant.
That's a classic Trek thing too. You see that all the time in Star Trek with these warring factions and different planets and stuff. But are we going to spoil the big reveal at the end? Do you want to talk about that? Because that was my favorite part. I didn't really care for most of the
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, we're still on the Captain Freeman storyline. So basically, she comes up with a solution to all the problems between the people of Mixus 2 and Mixus 3. She says that they will relocate 3 tons of dust from the unstable moon for the people who hold it religiously significant so they can worship the dust. She also says that they will have gravity systems installed for the farmers who depend on the tides for their crops. And she finally says that all the ancestral homes will be relocated to the 6th moon, since it will soon be technically the 5th moon anyway. So I guess like the religious, the ancestral homes had to be on the 5th moon. So it's like, well, technically that's going to be the 5th moon. So pretty much everyone's satisfied and they all agree to, her solutions. And they head out of the conference room except for one guy who says that the moon blocks pollution from Mixtus 3, which would otherwise fall onto Mixtus 2. And without the moon, they will perish. And so like there's this one holdout who's basically arguing that all of his people are in danger. And then at the end of the episode, we find out that it's just him and his wife. They're super rich and they have like this vacation home on this planet that Mixtus 2 is blocking the pollution from. And as soon as Captain Freeman hears this, she's like, destroy the moon.
Yeah.
Just screw this guy.
That was a good moment for me. I laughed. I had a good chuckle at it. And it felt like it was a nice subversion from like what we just talked about. We see this kind of scenario run out in like Next Generation all the time. And this kind of puts that Lower Decks spin on it where it's got this quirky element to it that makes it ridiculous and funny. I thought it was well done as far as this particular storyline went. Again, I'm not a super big fan of this captain. Her attitude kind of swings from like super strict to just not giving a crap. Every episode, she seems to just kind of want to fit for the comedy instead of actually just being a sustained character. So
it is a cartoon.
Yes, it is.
So she also seems kind of insecure in her position. Like she knows that she's the captain of a not so important ship, and so everything she does is kind of like an ambitious effort to progress her status. So it's kind of weird because she gets offended very easily when she's slighted. We've seen this in previous episodes. But she's also like way more qualified than she should be for a ship at this level. And they're constantly running into captains and ships that are like above them in terms of like the status of Starfleet. And so she's constantly like irritated that she's not where she thinks she should be.
Right.
Yeah, she's fine. I don't have a super big problem with her. It's not my favorite character on the show, but that one moment at the end of the episode that kind of like had that comic relief about the whole situation made me chuckle. So I did enjoy it.
Yeah, that one reveal, it's like, oh, it's just you and your wife.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. I like that. Yeah, this whole episode, there weren't like a whole lot of belly laughs, I'd say. It was more like intellectually I knew that there was humor in this episode.
Yeah. Because
a lot of the situations were very humorous and there were some good callbacks, but I didn't really have any like laugh out loud moments while watching this. I don't know about you guys.
I don't remember anything. So we'll talk about it in a minute, but I have a funny story to tell you guys about the Boimler and Mariner situation. We'll talk about that in a second.
Right. So let's go to Rutherford and Tendy's storyline, and it's kind of interesting because now that we've seen this episode in episode 6, we're kind of starting to see that there's the Mariner and Boimler storylines, and then they've seemed to have teamed up Tendy and Rutherford. So like we're getting these different storylines with these two different pairs, and basically Rutherford and Tendy are like the tech geeks, and they're taking a lot of joy in fixing up the Cerritos, which apparently is just falling apart constantly. So there's always something for them to do.
Well, it's an older ship; it needs work.
Exactly, and so like they get invited over to the Vancouver, which is the sister ship that's more advanced, and they're the one who's kind of like overseeing the controlled destruction of this moon. And apparently the Vancouver is just like, the Canadian version of the ships are like way better than the California versions. So they go over there and they're very impressed with the ship, and they go to see Lieutenant Commander Ron Dawsant. And he says that they can use the new T-88, I guess, tools. I don't know exactly what they are.
Super tricorder.
Yeah.
Super tricorder.
Yeah.
So he's like, and whoever gets the most done can keep the T-88 tool. And the Cerritos doesn't have any of these T-88s, so Tendi and Rutherford are really excited about this. But then they realize, they're in competition with one another. So as they're going through the Jeffries tubes, like scanning the ship with these T-88s, they start getting into a little bit of competition. And then when they go back to return the tools to Ron Dawsant, he informs them that they did such a good job that he's going to transfer them to the Vancouver off the Cerritos so that they can, use those tools, because the tools aren't technically allowed to leave the ship. And this causes them to have like a bit of a crisis. It's like, I really love the Cerritos. There's always something to do there because the ship's falling apart. But do I want to take this opportunity to basically like upgrade my career? So that happened. And then we find out that there's a little bit of shenanigans going on here, because Lieutenant Commander Dawsant basically feels out of his element on the Vancouver. He feels like it's too much responsibility and he's not qualified to handle it. So he came up with a plan to transfer Rutherford and Tendi there so that he could transfer to the Cerritos, where apparently life is much easier. And so Rutherford and Tendi find this out, and basically it devolves into like this weird kind of Benny Hillish chase sequence where Ron Dawsant's suddenly a maniacal bad guy who's trying to stun them with his phaser. And they eventually have like, the confrontation, and he comes clean and they hash everything out. But it was kind of like one of those like typical Next Generation scenarios that just devolves into ridiculousness in this show. And I found it kind of humorous, but at the same time was just kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, I felt this was kind of like a meh part of the show. It wasn't the main part, so it wasn't a big deal for it to just kind of like take a back seat. But I didn't find it all that funny. There was a little bit of humor here and there with Rutherford and Tendi kind of competing against like who can do the most work. It's real like that over the top Starfleet attitude. So it was kind of comical, but again, I take it or leave it. It didn't really do much for me. The rest of the episode kind of dragged. What may have been funny about this got dragged down by some of the things I didn't like about the rest of the episode.
I wonder if people are like making that parallel between the Cerritos and the actual state of California.
If the show was smart enough to do that, I would give it some good credit.
I don't think they're doing it on purpose.
I don't either.
But you're kind of getting that because California, as soon as you go across the border down here at Prim, the roads change.
Yeah.
They're nice, smooth asphalt, and then as soon as you get into California, because the state of California doesn't repair its fucking roads. Oh, sorry, I cussed. Can we cuss on YouTube? I don't know, but
let's try not to.
Yeah, let's try not to. I get a little wound
YouTube
up.
barely lets you talk on it anymore.
I know. So, but yeah, it's the parallel there is funny how the Cerritos is based on California and it's kind of run down, broken, needs a lot of help. And so
has a lot of respected.
Has a lot of weirdos running the ship. So.
Yeah. The captain, Newson, just doesn't know what he's doing.
Doesn't know what he's doing at all.
He gets really offended when people tell him he doesn't know what he's doing. I think you just cracked the code for this show, Vader.
I think I did. Yeah.
It's a very subversive show.
Nice. Good job.
All right. So let's talk about the main storyline, which is Boimler gets a girlfriend. And at first, Mariner doesn't believe him. But then she meets this girlfriend and she realizes, like, whoa, she's way too good for Boimler. Something's wrong here. And so as Boimler kind of, gets to spend time with his lady friend, who is, I believe, Lieutenant Brinson, Barbara Brinson. So Boimler and Brinson. Mariner starts, doing all this stuff to investigate Brinson to try to figure out, like, I think that she went through like Cardassian spy, transporter clone, Suliban, possessed by some type of like parasite, things like that. And at the same time, Boimler is jealous because he finds out that Benson used to date Lieutenant Jet, who's like this big, black, muscular, good-looking cyborg guy from the Cerritos. And so Boimler keeps trying to up his game in various ridiculous ways. And eventually, Mariner gets proof that there's some type of parasite involved here. And she thinks that it's, that Brinson is the parasite. And when she confronts her, they have like this big fight, like knockdown, drag out fight. And they start exchanging, what they know about Boimler during this fight. And they start bonding over like all the embarrassing stuff they know about him. And then they find out that it was Boimler who was infected by a parasite, which releases pheromones that attract women to him. And this is why Benson was into Boimler. It wasn't because she actually liked him. It was because this parasite was like fooling her into thinking she liked him. And so basically Boimler gets dumped at the end of the episode. And Mariner is, of course, proven right. And she becomes BFFs with Brinson. And it was another kind of example of the Mariner show and just kind of like making Boimler out to be like a complete tool, which I didn't like necessarily. But at the same time, it was also kind of like a funny interaction where for a great deal of the episode, Boimler was kind of like, yeah, I got this hot girlfriend, and Mariner just couldn't deal with it. And
no way, you don't have a hot girlfriend.
And it was a little bit cute.
Impossible.
Yeah, it was a little bit cute because it seemed like Mariner was kind of jealous. Like Boimler, like she's into Boimler a little bit, but she doesn't want to admit it. So there was a little bit of that there. And also like we're getting some type of like relationship vibes off of Rutherford and Tendi. So I found the main storyline pretty charming and humorous, but at the same time, I was kind of like, well, I wish that they hadn't made Boimler out to be such an idiot. And again, hadn't made Mariner like, the big Mary Sue that she has been for the past 5 episodes.
Boimler is her work wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know how that works. I've had lots of work wives, and, you work with these people that you see more than your family, and you develop relationships, and that's how it is, man. It's just the real world.
Yeah.
I get it.
I can agree with you. It did have some charm to it, but the funny story I wanted to tell you guys is I was watching this show, and my wife happened to be in the room, and she doesn't watch it. I asked her if she wanted to watch it when it first started coming out, and she's like, "It looks like Rick and Morty with Star Trek." She's not interested. She's like, "That's not Star Trek to me." Get that. She's like, "Get that trash out of my house." I'm like, "Well, I got to watch it because I'm gonna review it." So I'm watching this episode, and at the point where Mariner and what's Boimler's girlfriend's name? Brinson, when they're fighting, like having a duke out, and they're going like, "No, you're the parasite. No, you're the parasite. No, I think you're the parasite." My wife looked at me from across the room and was like, Gene Roddenberry is freaking out right now. That is trash. She's like, that is some uneducated, dumb Star Trek. Yep. And I'm like, you're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. So I have to give credit to my wife because she kind of I was kind of chuckling at it, but then when she like pointed out just how dumb it was, I was like, wow, man, it's so different from any other Star Trek out there that it is a hard pill to swallow if you're not into it. So that's I didn't really care for this storyline. I thought it was kind of funny here and there, but overall, it just kind of, man, this was like a meh episode for me.
There was one part of the episode that I really enjoyed, which was Mariner's flashback to her time on the medical frigate USS Quinto, which I guess is a nod to Zachary Quinto, who played Spock in the J.J. Abrams movies. But basically, she had a flashback where she's like at the Quinto that's docked at Deep Space Nine, and her and two friends of hers are at a bar, and her friends are like finally together. And she's like, "Oh, you guys are so cute together, blah, blah, blah." And, she talks about how perfect the guy is and how like she wouldn't be surprised if he was like a Hargonvian shapeshifter, because he's so perfect. And then like the guy, like you start seeing him like, kind of twitch and stuff. And then he becomes this monstrous Harvongian shapeshifter, and he just eats her friend right in front of her. And so like this is like her motivation as to why she wants to protect Boimler and why she's suspicious of Brinson, because when things turn out to be too good to be true in the Star Trek universe, they usually are. So, but that whole scene, it was just, I found it very humorous because it was a very Star Trek-y scene where it's like, oh, like the shapeshifter, and like he turns into a monster and like he starts eating people.
Yeah.
But it was also like, Vader, you told me that the medical frigate is something that was in...
It was. I don't remember the name of the ship, but it's the same kind of ship that Captain Beverly Crusher captained in the series finale for Next Generation.
Yeah, so I didn't recognize the design of the ship, and I thought it was really cool because I didn't remember seeing it before. But it's also kind of funny that Mariner has been on like.
Chat said it. It was the name of the ship was the Pasteur. So that is very correct.
But it is funny that Mariner has been on so many different ships. Like she's just like really well traveled, experienced.
I'm confused sometimes about how old she is and how long she's been in Starfleet, because it seems like Boimler's pretty new, and they were supposedly in the Starfleet together, coming up being trained, but she's been on like all these Black Ops missions with Klingons and like 4 different starships.
I think Mariner has supposed to have been promoted before and then demoted several times, and she jumps around from ship to ship because she's kind of a head case and has the attitude problem, So.
Yeah, but I think they're also making it a specific gag that Mariner is so young and yet she's had all these experiences, almost like a Wesley Crusher type thing where she's been in Starfleet because of her parents since like birth. And so like she's basically been crewing ships since, she can remember and has all these experiences and stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't help with the Mary Sue aspect of her character, though. It's like she's been there, done that with everything that she encounters. It kind of gets old after a while.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to episode 6, entitled Terminal Provocations. And basically, this is an episode where the lovable but awkward Ensign Fletcher makes work difficult for Mariner and Boimler, and Rutherford introduces Tendi to a holodeck training program that he created. So the overarching upper deck story that we're introduced to in this episode is basically Captain Freeman and her bridge crew are looking to basically salvage what's left of a Federation starship that I guess like had some type of accident or crashed or whatever. And it was a Starfleet Antares cargo ship. And so there was a lot of like Starfleet cargo and stuff like that was in the wreckage.
From 100 years ago, it said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a race of aliens called the Drukmanis, which discovered the wreck and alerted Starfleet to it, but they want a finder's reward.
Well, they're claiming salvage.
Yeah, and basically their finder's reward is the actual wreckage of the ship, and that's what they're claiming in Star Trek.
I think there's like a legit maritime law, a salvage law that
Starfleet's basically like, well, you can't have it because this belongs to the Federation. And so like there's like this confrontation going on with these Drukmani salvagers, and at some point the Drukmanis, rather than straight out attack the Cerritos with weapons, they start using their tractor beams to like fling garbage at them and impact their ship. And so like at first you have this tug of war between the 2 tractor beams, and then the Drukmani just start like freaking attacking the ship basically.
So I need to interject just real quick. So if the writers knew Star Trek, at least in my opinion, this Drukmani aliens, I've never heard of these things. But if they really had wanted to like make this a throwback, they should have used Pakleds and as the other race of aliens. You guys don't even know what the Pakleds are, right?
No. Educate us, Vader.
So back in season 1, season 2, I don't know. It was early in the Star Trek Generations run. There's a Geordi episode where there's these race of aliens who have a broken ship, and they're really dumb. And the aliens that go, "You are smart. You make things go."
Yes,
right?
I do remember that.
And they kidnap Geordi to fix their warp core on their ship.
Yep.
And they're a bunch of retards, really. And it's just that would have, to me, that dynamic would have been much better, instead of introducing some new race, instead of, because it would have been like a better kind of standoff between the Cerritos and the captain trying to negotiate with these dumbass Pakleds who are trying to steal their broken down junk out in space. So that's just my opinion. But anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Well, I mean, it is funny because Starfleet, the Cerritos can't fire on the Drukmani ship because, as the crew tells the captain, basically, if they fire on that ship, it's an act of war. And the whole Drukmani species will declare war on the Federation. And Lieutenant Shax, who's one of my favorite characters, he's the head of security. He's like, I got no problem with that. Let's just kill these guys. And but of course, Captain Freeman's like, oh, we have to find a different solution. So all throughout this episode, the tensions between the Cerritos and the Drukmani ship keep escalating, and they kind of tie in with the main storyline of this episode, which we'll get to in a second. So the kind of B storyline of the episode has to do with Rutherford and Tendi again. And basically, Tendi is kind of nervous about doing spacewalking to repair, stuff on the outer hull of the ship. And she knows that she's going to be called to do that at a certain point, and she's kind of expressing her nervousness to Rutherford, and Rutherford says that he's created a training program on the holodeck that can help her out, so she can get used to spacewalking without actually being in the dangers of outer space. And so they go to the holodeck, and he calls up his beta program, which is called Badgie. And it's just like a Starfleet badge. It's almost like that little paperclip thing.
Yes, the paperclip from yes, exactly what I was going to say.
And I was getting more of a DNA vibe.
DNA?
Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park.
Mr. DNA. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those cartoon mascot type things. So it's like a Starfleet badge with eyes and a mouth, and he pops up and he's like, "What would you like me to train you in today?" And,
right.
Unfortunately, because it's a beta program, it gets glitchy. And as the Drukmani are attacking the ship, the safety protocols for the holodeck somehow get turned off. And what happens is Badgie basically malfunctions like most Star Trek holodeck things do, and he becomes evil. And he starts basically dismembering other holodeck people and trying to kill Boimler and Tendi. And so at a certain point, Rutherford and Tendi. And so at a certain point, they start running away from Badgie, who's like, "I'm going to rip you apart and drink your blood," and blah, blah, blah. and so they have to find a way to defeat Badgie because the computer isn't, obeying any of their commands and stuff like that. And also have to find a way to keep themselves from being killed now that the safety protocols are off.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of weird holodeck episodes in Star Trek over the years. So,
for sure,
I don't feel like they're treading any new material with this thing. They're just making it a little more cartoony is all they did with it, and it's fine, I guess. Whatever.
And Tim in the comments said Futurama did this 15 years ago, which they absolutely did. This is not like new ground or anything. It's just the Star Trek version of all these events. Yeah. And I have to say though, I did laugh at this part. Having Badgie just go completely psycho and watch him rip apart all these other holographic things, and it reminded me of Star Trek Voyager. If you guys are fans of Voyager, you remember Naomi had a hologram program that was like a fantasy little world. They had a fish dude that was her best friend or whatnot. And when I saw this episode, and I was like, man, what if that happened to Naomi when she was a kid and she went in there with Neelix and this program went crazy and tried to murder everybody? It seemed like a classic, scenario that would happen in a Star Trek episode, and it was just over the top and pretty comical. So this aspect of this episode, I did enjoy this. I thought the Badgie little subplot was pretty freaking funny.
Yeah, I actually hope they bring Badgie back because I really enjoyed like this cartoony, friendly-looking Starfleet badge, which is just secretly a
maniac. Can you imagine the merch that's coming? The Badgie merch. It's happening.
Badgie merch. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Do they have any merch for this TV show? I haven't seen anything.
But it is funny because at a certain point, Rutherford, in order to save Tendi, he faces off with his creation Badgie, and he starts fighting with it hand to hand. And Badgie's like, like, I will kill you, father. You have betrayed me for the last time. And at a certain point, Rutherford's like, I'm sorry, son. I shouldn't have activated you until you were ready. And so it's kind of like a funny thing. And then like Badgie, like he ends up killing Badgie, breaking his neck, like just twisting the badge around. And then
he broke his neck, but it was just he just twisted it like a piece of paper. Yeah.
And then like he does the whole no thing. and then like once the safety protocols re-engage after the threat that the upper deck is dealing with resolves itself, Badgie just pops back up like nothing happened. He's like, hey guys, how's it going? Do you want me to train you in anything? And they're just like, no, just let us out of here.
Yeah.
And then it's implied that Badgie is still functioning.
And what did he say? He's like, I'll see you later, and his eyes get all crazy or something like that.
It's very much a Moriarty situation, because you know how in the Next Generation, Moriarty, whenever Data and Geordi did the Sherlock Holmes program, Moriarty was actually like a bad guy.
Yeah.
See, now that would be a fun episode of the bring Moriarty back, right? But he's in his little secret holodeck universe, right? And he has they put him in this little stasis chamber that he thinks is the universe. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that'd be a cool callback to bring back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a fun little thing. Although most of the criticisms of this episode that I saw on Twitter had to do with Badgie like dismembering people, even though they weren't real people. They were pointing to that as like, I remember when my Star Trek wasn't so gory.
That's the thing with Kurtzman's Star Trek. Like he really wants to make this rated R. Like the cartoon thing, it's Rick and Morty gore, so it doesn't really. I don't think it counts like that.
I can remember Worf kind of messing up some holodeck creatures in his training programs. So
yeah, but it's never.
It was never like overtly like bloody and gross. But
no, the worst thing. Go ahead.
I just said he's still cutting some people up pretty good with his batleth. So.
Yeah. The worst thing I remember ever seeing in like legit Star Trek was like plasma burns from exploding, equipment and stuff like that. But like Star Trek Discovery took it to a level that I don't ever want Star Trek to take it to, because they were legit like decapitating Klingons and stuff like that.
Oh, well, Discovery's garbage TV show.
Yeah, it was trash. So like when they do something similar, but it's in this like cartoon version, it's more of a comical thing than it is like some like shocking gore. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
I actually find that type of stuff entertaining, like cartoon limbs being ripped off, blood spraying everywhere, and they get beaten with them and stuff. So like that didn't bother me too much, but I can see why people would think it was stupid or a bad idea or whatever. Did we lose Alex?
I don't know. Salty disappeared. Does that mean I have to talk more?
Probably.
Yeah. Oh God!
I actually have to put in some work. All right.
I'm putting in my work.
Yeah, so let's talk about the main storyline of this episode, which is we're introduced to a new character, basically a character named Ensign Fletcher.
Fletcher, yeah.
And he seems to be a real dude bro. He's part of the Lower Decks crew. And he's working with Boimler and Mariner, recalibrating the ship's isolinear cores. Do you know what those are, Matt?
Oh, they have something to do with the ship and how it runs. I don't know, man. You know what they do? So
I don't know what they do, actually.
It's does any Trek person know what they do?
I'm sure there are Trek people out there.
It's Trek no babble. It's
what isolinear cores do.
I know, go mess with the isolinear chips, and they take them out and they go and they play with them, and the shields do different things or whatever. It's just it's a plot device for Star Trek that they can throw words like that in. Where the hell did Salty go?
I'm right here. Sorry. I had to step out for a second.
But it's like isolinear chips and dilithium diodes and whatever. It's Trekno speak. It's fine. It's cool.
Trekno speak. I like that. So anyway, Mariner and Boimler and Fletcher are all working on all these isolinear cores that they have to recalibrate. And Mariner and Boimler are basically worried that they're not going to be able to finish in time to go to this thing called the Choo Choo Dance, which is a party that's happening in like 10 Forward or something like that. But they've been looking forward to this Choo Choo Dance thing. I guess there's like some type of like band, the Choo Choo band that's playing there. And they're kind of bummed that they're going to miss out on this. And Fletcher basically says like, hey, you guys go to the Choo Choo Dance. I'll take care of the isolinear cores. And they're like, dude, are you sure? This is a lot of work. And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, go on. Like, I don't mind it. So Mariner and Boimler take that opportunity to go to the choo-choo dance. And they leave Fletcher to his own devices.
The choo-choo dance.
Yeah. And when they come out of the choo-choo dance, they got like their choo-choo t-shirts on, and they're like singing the choo-choo song. And but then they find Fletcher like knocked out completely. And when they ask him what happened, he basically says he was working on the core when someone came up behind him and stunned him with a phaser. And they noticed that one of the isolinear cores for the shield array is missing. And basically that means that, the isolinear shield arrays kind of auto repair when the shields are damaged. And because
can you say that again?
Yeah.
Isolinear shield arrays. That's a good one. That's another Trek.
Well, the isolinear cores for the shield array. So basically, these cores are responsible for auto repairing the shields after they've been damaged, and because the Cerritos is currently being bombarded by trash from what were those guys called again? The Duke Mani. This has wide-reaching implications for the ship, because if the shields can't auto-repair, eventually they're going to fail, and pretty soon the hull is going to start taking damage. So basically they know that because of this, Fletcher could be court-martialed, and Mariner and Boimler realize that they're responsible for him, being in this situation, so they want to help him out, find out who did this. And so the first suspects they come up with are the Delta Shift, which is like the B-listers of the B-listers, I guess. They're like the night shift that goes on while Mariner and her crew are sleeping, I guess. So they pay them a visit, and basically the Delta Shift starts talking mad shit to them, and they're about to come to fisticuffs when one of them says like, hey, wait a minute, we were at the choo-choo dance with you guys. It couldn't have been us. And then it cuts to Mariner and Boimler singing the choo-choo dance at the choo-choo party, and it's the Delta crew's like right behind them, and they're like, oh yeah, it couldn't have been you. And so they ask if Fletcher remembers anything else, and Fletcher eventually is revealed that he tried to do like a weird thing where he hooked himself up to one of these mechanical things that he was fixing, and he wanted to make himself smarter. So he was hoping to transfer some of that energy from these isometric cores into his brain, and it ended up working in reverse, where he transferred part of his consciousness into one of these cores, and the core became self-aware and attacked him. And it's slowly kind of like this core is slowly growing and becoming like a sentient alien thing that's just like absorbing all the material around it and getting bigger and bigger and more dangerous. And so Boimler basically has to team up with Mariner and subdue this thing and get it out in airlock. And as soon as they fire this sentient isometric core out the airlock, it attacks the Drukmani ship and destroys it. And so technically Starfleet didn't fire on that ship, and it kind of diffuses the situation for the upper deck crew. But basically Fletcher still lied to them and basically was blackmailing them to keep them from not telling on him. So instead they get him promoted, and in this promotion it gets him off the Cerritos, and he becomes someone else's problem. And Boimler's kind of pissed off about this, because Boimler really wants to be promoted and get on a better ship, but he's willing to kind of like let this one slide, because he just realizes how big of a screw up Fletcher is, and he doesn't want him on the ship anymore. And it turns out, like, what was it, like 6 weeks after he got promoted, Fletcher basically gets kicked off the ship and demoted or something like that. So it was like the right call for this. One of the things I liked about this episode is it wasn't so Mariner centric. Like it felt like, she was kind of like marginalized a little bit. It was more of an even Boimler and Mariner episode. So Boimler didn't come off as such an incompetent fool, and Mariner wasn't such a Mary Sue. And I felt like it worked a lot better. But out of all the episodes we've seen so far, this one was the most meh for me.
Yeah.
I will agree. I like the dynamic. Whenever they do like an ensemble style storytelling where it's not just Mariner being like head honcho, I feel like it works so much better, especially with Boimler. And in that regard, I think this episode worked pretty well. But I'm with you guys. I really don't want to ever see that weirdo that caused all these problems ever again in the show.
Fletcher?
Like Fletcher, yeah, I didn't like his character. I didn't think he was
Voiced
that
by
funny.
Tim Robinson, for the record.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who's Tim Robinson?
No, he's an actor.
Some guy.
Some guy.
What else has he been in?
I don't know. I'd have to go look.
Okay.
I would require show prep before we go in.
We didn't do that.
That's this guy's job over here to actually research and stuff.
But like you said his name like he was significant for something.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, okay. If you guys are gonna like fucking nail me here, hold on.
Anyway, I didn't really care for this episode. I didn't think the premise was very believable with like this like sentient being just kind of like showing up out of nowhere and like collecting trash that makes itself bigger. I was like, nah. It was too fast. Like I could see that happening in like Next Generation or Voyager or something over the course of like a whole season or something. Like not a season, that's excessive, but like maybe a 2-part season where they have this thing that starts off small and then it gets bigger and bigger. But like they did it so quick in this episode and there was like really no explanation for how it worked. So I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy the premise. I didn't really like it that much. But I did like the fact that Boimler and Mariner worked together more as a team.
Tim Robinson is an SNL guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the new SNL dudes. So there.
No one of significance.
No one of significance.
What did you think about this?
What?
What did you think about this this little episode here? Or this
It was just typical Lower Decks. It was fine. It was, I've just come to expect a 20-minute bit of mediocrity with some Star Trek
paint over it.
Paint on it. Yeah, that's a good word for it. With some
Star Trek
throwbacks.
skin.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's pretty much what this is. It's just thinly veiled Star Trek cartoon with some Easter eggs and some cool artwork sometimes. So I still like the art. I like the art style. I like the way the ships look. I like the way that when they go like show space shots with planets and that kind of stuff. I think it's cool, but they need some work in the writing room, So
I will say that of the new Trek shows we've gotten, like Discovery and Picard, this one feels the most authentically Trek to me. Like Lower Decks feels like it's made by people who actually love Star Trek, as opposed to people who are just brought on.
Well,
because
I would say it's made by people who have at least bothered to research Star Trek. I don't know if I get the love part, but they at least kind of research their stories a little bit about before they put it out there. So.
And here's a little fun fact. Jack McBrayer did the voice of Badgie, and you might recognize him as Kenneth.
Who's that?
Kenneth from 30 Rock.
I've never heard of that guy.
He was the page.
He's a loser. I don't know who that is.
No, I like him. He's funny.
Really good comedic actor. You'd recognize him if you saw him, Vader.
I'm sure I would.
Very good comedic actor.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent that works on this show. It's just, unfortunately, it doesn't always communicate to the final product.
I don't sense the utmost. I don't sense the disdain and disrespect towards Star Trek that I got from Picard. And from like the first couple seasons of Discovery. You watch those shows and it's like, why are they even making these shows? They obviously hate this world. So why are they in it? Why,
or they want to change it, or they want to make it look.
You could ask that about the people who worked on the Star Wars movies too.
Yeah. So same thing. It's the exact same thing. You're right.
Yeah. I want to address one of the comments in here. It says, "Are the women still all powerful and the men all silly?" For the most part, yes. However, some episodes flip the script a little bit, and they like Rutherford. Rutherford's been pretty competent throughout the entire season. There's never a moment where his character is like the dumb one. So like Rutherford and Tilly, is it Tilly or Tindy? Rutherford and Tindy work really well together, and they're, as far as I can remember throughout the entire season so far, they've been pretty much equals. Where we get like real lopsided friendship is with Mariner and Boimler. And it's unfortunate. Like some episodes are really good. Like Katie said, like you have a good team dynamic and Boimler holds his own. And then other episodes, they just throw him under the bus and he's a fool. So it's very uneven when it comes to that particular criticism that people give it. It's like sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, I really think that the best episode that we got was, I think it was called Envoys. It was the one where basically Mariner is teamed up with Jack Ransom on the planet. And we get their story, and then Boimler's on the ship, and it was the Temporal Edict one, and Boimler's on the ship, and he's basically, the guy who, like he can keep up with the time requirements that the captain's been imposing on them as they're being attacked. And so like he comes off as very competent because he helps resolve the situation on the ship, and Mariner is kind of sidelined by Ransom on the planet, and we get to see Ransom's Kirk fight with that giant, and Mariner's kind of turned on by it after he stabs her in the foot to keep her from out Mary suing him. So like I feel like that's the best episode we've gotten so far in terms of like the different character dynamics. But like all these characters are caricatures of other characters from Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's not necessarily like, women bad, men morons type thing, because there are men in the show who are pretty competent. It's just one of those things where I feel like the writers and producers have made decisions that don't translate well for the most part. So like, Mariner's kind of grown on me. I'm starting to like her a little bit more, but she's still like she has a tendency to dominate each episode that she's in.
I don't find her as annoying as I did the first few episodes.
Yeah. But now that I know her a little bit better, like I'm not quite as irritated by her. But at the same time, the episodes where she's not front and center, like kind of leading the action, are much better. Because I feel like Star Trek is at its best when it's an ensemble instead of focusing on just like one character. And the episodes that we've gotten from Lower Decks that are more ensemble pieces have been pretty good, in my opinion. And it's always the ones that kind of focus on Mariner specifically that I'm just kind of like, I didn't really enjoy it all that much. So who knows?
That's just three white dudes' opinion.
This isn't made for us.
It's not our show.
It's not our show. No, never. All right. Well, that covers both episodes pretty well. Or is there anything else in the that we want to talk about?
Yeah. So we got the announcement this week that for the first time ever, Star Trek is going to have non-binary and trans characters in it in the third season of Discovery. And I wanted to know what Matt Vader thought of that news.
Dude, this is supposed to be like a lighthearted cartoon show.
We're diving into politics, baby.
Oh, it's Star Trek news.
I'm going to say 3 words. And if it's too cryptic for you, then fine. But that's all I'm going to say. And the chat can go figure it out. They can go on Twitter. They can look it up. Whatever. I'm just going to say beep, boop, bop, and call it good. Okay, and that's it. That's all I'm saying about the stupid-ass trans binary whatever stuff on Star Trek. And it transcends IPs. So that's that.
Well, the interesting thing is that there was a Next Generation episode that had an entire non-binary race in it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Riker got busy with one of them. So
of course he did.
Technically, their announcement that's the first non-binary character is not true, right?
Yeah. Cyber's asking this question: what do we think about Q being in Lower Decks? And that's not till next week's episode, so we'll talk about it then.
Is it confirmed that he's actually in that episode?
I believe so. Yes.
John Delancey is coming back to voice his character.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. Yes.
Well, I'm down for that.
For sure.
The whole non-binary thing is just a publicity stunt to be calling it the first ever. I mean, the argument that they want to say is like it's the first ever main character in a show. It's not just a side character or something like
probably not even the main character.
Yeah. But also, like, I kind of feel like Tig Notaro is so androgynous that she kind of beat them to that.
Yeah.
In Discovery.
So I don't know.
We did get the new trailer for season 3 of Discovery.
And you know what? I haven't even bothered to watch it.
I didn't know it was out.
I haven't even watched it yet.
Yeah, it came out. And it is, I have very mixed feelings about it because I feel like they're trying to do some good stuff in it, but at the same time, there's so many little things that just like bothered me about it. I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with Star Trek. Like every time I give it a second chance and come back to it, it just fucking beats the shit out of me. Yeah. And I feel like,
the stank from the first 2 seasons of Discovery is not going to go away in this 3rd season. It's still going to be there, and if you can't get over that hurdle, and even if this season is really good, a lot of people are just not going to accept it because the last 2 seasons were terrible.
I think I'm kind of done with Discovery. I feel like Matt said, it's just they beat our head with their nonsense too much. If there's going to be any saving Star Trek the franchise, it's going to have to come from the Pike series. They're going to have to do that series correctly.
Is it Strange New Worlds or Brave New Worlds?
I don't know.
Strange, I think.
Strange New Worlds.
But you know what? Discovery is a hate watch for me. I'm only watching it so we can talk about it. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
And the Pike show has to be good.
I'm looking forward to it. It is kind of funny because if chat were to go back and listen to our older podcast episodes where we talk about Discovery and we talked about Picard, we always start off very optimistic. Like we're really trying hard to give it the benefit of the doubt. I remember particularly with Picard, Vader, you and me, the first like 2 episodes or so, we were kind of like very forgiving of some of the things. And then as it went on, you could just see us get more and more bitter.
We were angry. By the time it's like, what are with these stupid flowers? Why are there flowers floating in space? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, so many questionable. And Discovery season 3 has a whole new showrunner, Michelle Paradise, and I can remember when she was named showrunner at the end of season 2 of Discovery. There was a lot of talk about her being like an old school Star Trek fan, and she wants to get back to more traditional Star Trek storytelling. And from the trailer for Discovery season 3, I don't really see that, But like I do see that they're trying to make the crew more of the focus as opposed to making it the Michael Burnham show. I do have a little bit of faith there. And then that guy from the short trek, the black guy, when he found Discovery and was on the ship, by himself for like a while. I forget his name, but he's going to be a character, like a recurring character in the show. And it looks like Tilly's going through some stuff this season.
Of course she is.
Yeah. And Michelle Yeoh is back. I don't know how they're going to get her back 1,000 years from the future to do the Section 32 show, unless they create a whole new Section 32 1,000 years in the future.
31.
Sorry. Well, it'll be called Section 32 1,000 years in the future.
I want to address the Skullberry 9000 brought up a good point. It said if Pike does well, they are going to say it's because fans only watch a Star Trek with a white male in the chair, and it's not true. Of course, it's not true. My favorite Star Trek is Voyager, and it's because I freaking
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I freaking love Captain Janeway. I think she's super cool. I got to meet Kate Mulgrew at the last Star Trek Day. She's awesome. So that's you're right. That is obviously not true. The difference between Michael Burnham and Discovery not doing well versus Pike and his new show is Anson Mount is way more charming than Michael Burnham's character. Captain Pike, Anson Mount's acting, he fits the mold of that Starfleet captain way better than Michael Burnham did. And again, I think, Kadish, you brought this up multiple times in our podcast that like having Michael Burnham not be the captain but still be the main character really sets her on an uphill battle as far as the audience is concerned. Can you explain that for people who haven't heard it?
Yeah, like basically, the person driving the action in a Star Trek show has to be the captain because they're the commander of the ship. The crew takes their lead from the captain. You have, a whole tradition of this where, Kirk is the one who leads the away team and the ship. Picard was the captain, even though he had underlings to do stuff for him. He was still like the leader. His decisions drove the action forward. Same thing with Voyager and Janeway, with DS9 and Commander Sisko. So you always had like a character that was the shot caller, and he would be the one, or he or she would be the one driving the action forward. And because of the command structure of Starfleet, naturally that would be the person who was in charge of the ship. And with Discovery, we got this weird dynamic where the main character was not the person in charge of the ship. Burnham has never been captain of the Discovery. It's always either been Lorca or what's the alien's name, Saru, or Pike. And so, like, when she comes along and she makes a decision that needs to happen in order to drive the story forward, it feels inauthentic because she's not in charge.
Yeah, and she's always her job is always berate the captain and tell him what they're doing is wrong, and set them on the right path.
It sets a very weird tone for the show, and as far as I'm concerned, it makes me not really want to root for her because it's constantly like I've been raised on Star Trek. You follow the captain's orders and you do what they say, and the crew is there to complete the mission to the betterment of everybody. And they're like, Michael Burnham's like, no, you're doing it wrong. I'm going to do it this way, and it just didn't work for me. And I think that's the biggest fault of Discovery season 1 and 2. And if they change that aspect in season 3 and Burnham is the leader and everybody goes by her command, it could very well turn around, and I'd be willing to give it a shot. I don't expect shows that right.
Saru's the captain of the ship, so
yeah, he is. I wonder.
Like
that's a good point. What are they going to do with that? That's it. Oh man.
What would have been interesting is if in the first season of Discovery, is if Burnham's mutiny had succeeded and she had done what she had set out to do instead of being stopped. And, basically she ended up being right, and Starfleet secretly acknowledges that and gives her command of this, experimental ship because they need her to kind of use her instincts to lead them against the Klingons. But her crew doesn't trust her. And so like the first season would have been her kind of gaining the trust of her crew, even though like she's like a mutineer and like, a bad Starfleet officer and stuff like that. I think that would have been an interesting way to go. But instead we get this thing where basically she's completely discredited, and then she's brought on by Lorca for reasons that we find out later that have nothing to do with that actual Burnham, but like the mirror universe Burnham. And so like we're in a situation where basically it's the same thing. Nobody trusts her on the crew, but she's also she really has no right to be calling shots there because Lorca is the one in charge. And like Vader said, like she basically this is the Burnham formula. The captain makes a decision, she berates the captain and then tells him what the real decision is. And the captain's like, yeah, okay, let's do that. So like it's a really odd situation. Like they really needed to have put her in charge or not have made her the main character. It's just as easy as that.
Yep.
All right. That's probably going to do it for us today, guys. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. We got almost, I think, 7 people in the chat room at one time. That was pretty awesome. Woo-hoo! Thank you guys all for stopping by. It's pretty cool for somebody who never does live streams.
Yeah.
So we appreciate the support. Go to saltynerdpodcast.com if you want to check out the rest of our content, the legit, like, produced and done up content we have there. Coming up this week, we're going to be doing Viking Week. It's going to drop on Tuesday. It's the Barbarians episode right above me here.
That was such a fun show to do.
It was a great show, dude. We had such a fun time.
And you guys got drunk off mead while you were doing it.
Yes, we did. And if you guys want to support the show, go to saltynerdclub.com. There's exclusive content coming out. Mostly it's like vulgar jokes from Vader that I can't put publicly on iTunes.
I can't talk without dropping F-bombs. I apologize. It's impossible anyway.
So if you like this dude right above me, go to saltynerdclub.com, do a $1 patron, and just get this week's exclusive content because it's freaking hilarious and we were all drunk off our ass. So go support the podcast and check us out.
I was buzzed. Okay, I wasn't drunk off my ass.
I'd also like to announce that we're getting very close to the point where we can actually do the podcast live on a live stream. I'd say within the next month or so, we're going to have the ability to do that. So eventually, you guys will get to see us record the show live and get to see Vader's improprieties in real time. Before
I'm good. We have to start doing this on a non-work day because I legit get nervous doing this on YouTube. Like I used to do it. Like I used to get nervous in front of us for the show, just talking into a microphone. So that'll be an interesting little experiment. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be good.
But the next chapter of the SMP is going to be live streaming. So look forward to that. And as always, shout out to our patrons, Nick, Haas, Ro, Vader's one, Jude as well, and Price of Reason. You guys are awesome. Thanks for supporting us. And who wants to sign us out? Kadish, you want to take over?
Live long and prosper.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Live long and prosper. Have a good one, everybody.